What can a technician with remote access do? The remote access scam, which comes up in very many different guises, but it almost always begins with a phone call you receive with someone trying to get access to your machine, has brought to light the concept of remote access and understanding exactly what kinds of things that person at the other end of the line can do is important to understanding why this is such an important scam to be aware of and why it's actually fairly easy to avoid. What can a technician with remote access do? Several current scams center around gaining remote access to your computer, often in the guise of fixing problems. There's no way to know what was done, but we do know one thing: it's a trap. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Question: I called a number that I thought was the support center and was immediately connected with a technician who skillfully asked my permission to allow him to access my computer so that he could diagnose the problem, and I agreed. After he informed me that I had over 1,000 errors that needed to be erased and that he could do this for me for only $250, I realized that this was some kind of a scam, and I promptly ended the call. What kind of risk have I exposed myself to? First, good on you for terminating that call. While it may have obviously been a scam to you and me, I continue to hear that many people fall for it. But the big question is, you let a stranger with malicious intent use your machine remotely. How worried should you be? Unfortunately, there's no clear answer. What could that technician have done? There's no way to know what the technician, perhaps the wrong thing to call him, but we'll run with it, has done. If you know what you're watching, you might see what they're doing. Their willingness to answer questions about what you see might be a clue. Unfortunately, the tools and tricks available to them also include things you might not see once they've established a foothold of some sort. So we end up playing the odds. He could have done nothing. This is perhaps the most likely scenario. The technician was probably only after your money in the form of purchasing his services to clean your machine. It's possible that this was the extent of the scam. By not falling for it and disconnecting as you did, nothing malicious was left behind. From the scammer's point of view, that's the easiest, safest way to go. Beyond commonly available remote access software, no additional hacking tools are required. It's simply social engineering to get you to hand over your credit card information. As long as enough people fall for the scam, it's a success. Nothing else is needed. He could have done something you'd see. Most remote access utilities allow you to see what the remote user is doing to your machine. That's true with the tools scammers commonly use, in part so they can show you all the errors on your machine, usually by exploiting the mess that is the event viewer's log. But that means you would see whatever else they were doing as they did it. If the technician downloaded or transferred software onto your machine, you'd see it being done. If they ran a program, you'd see it. If they ran a setup, you'd see it. Now, of course, you'd have to understand what you were seeing as it happened, and of course, they rely on most people not being able to do that. If you question them, they'll make up a reason and say it's nothing to worry about. If they downloaded and installed anything, you need to assume they installed malware. He could have done something you wouldn't see. Here's where things get difficult. It's certainly plausible that the remote connections set up by the scammer, including connections you would not see. Perhaps a sleight of hand move while they're confusing you with the event viewer allowed them to run a program and set up a malicious backdoor connection. Perhaps the type of remote connection they set up allowed them to bypass your firewall. Perhaps this backdoor will keep running after you've hung up, allowing them access anytime in the future. Perhaps the entire time they had you online, they were surreptitiously loading your machine up with all sorts of malware. From what I've heard, it's not common, but it can happen. Assume you're infected. The safest thing for you to do, of course, is to assume your machine has been infected. Just how drastic the steps you need to take next depend on what you experienced, what we find, and on your own level of security and/or paranoia. Here's what I would do. Immediately run a full anti-malware scan. Run a full scan using the free version of Malware Anti-Bytes Anti-Malware. Keep a close eye out for anything that looks the least bit suspicious, incorrect, or most importantly, new behavior by the computer. If that all comes up clean, then it's probably enough. If there's even the slightest problem with the scans or the computer's behavior, or you're simply not certain that probably is good enough, you really have only one solution. Back up, reinstall Windows from scratch, reinstall your applications from scratch, restore your data from the backup or elsewhere, and learn from the experience. For links related to this article or to leave a comment, visit askleo.com/85111. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.